All right, team. Today we're going to be unlocking some serious AI power within Power Automate. I'm going to show you how to use AI Hub to be able to read PDF purchase orders, pull out the specific details, and then update an Excel spreadsheet automatically. This is real hands-off automation driven by AI. So let's jump right in. Okay, so before we begin, what we need to do is I'm going to show you some of the sample PDF documents that are prepared that we're going to use to train the AI model to be able to look for the specific pieces of information in the PDFs that we want. So I open up my Adobe PDF reader, and here's a sample purchase order that I've created. Naturally, I use AI to create these, but this is what a sample purchase order would look like. And you'll notice that there's kind of three separate pieces or sections within this document. You have some order information up here where you have a purchase order number and then you have an order date. And then below that, you have a section called customer information where it has information about the company that's placing the order, an address, city, province, postal code, a contact name for this order, and maybe perhaps an email address. And then below, there's the next section, which is basically the line items. These are the things that are part of this order. There's spaces here for 1 to 10 separate line items, but in this case, for this particular order, it's got 6 specified. Each line item has a description, and it also has a quantity, and then a unit price. In other words, how much per unit is it? And then it does a calculation. So for example, in this case, a quantity of 2 at a unit price of $189 each comes to a total of $378. It does that for each one of the line items. And then it has a subtotal. And then what it does is it calculates some tax, GST or goods and services tax here in Canada is 5%. And then it comes up with, there's perhaps maybe a shipping total that is part of this. And then it totals all that amount up and puts it in the grand total at the bottom corner here. So here's an example of a purchase order. Now what I've done is I've actually developed 5 different purchase orders. So here's one, here's another one, and you can see that it has it's changed the customer information, and it also has a different amount of line items for each one of the orders for each one of these purchase orders, so on like that. So that's what we want to do. We want to be able to take the information that's in these PDF documents and have the AI Hub be able to look at each one of these PDF documents and then pull that information out and then place it into an Excel workbook for us. So before we can do that, let me show how we can actually train the AI model to do that. So the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to log into Power Automate Cloud. Now to do that, open up a browser. Now, if you haven't already done this, you can set up a free account. Now, everything that I'm showing you is absolutely free, which is really great news. So before you can actually log into Power Automate Cloud, you have to create a Microsoft account. But let's just say, for example, you've already created your Microsoft account. So now when you go into make.powerautomate.com, it might prompt you for your user credentials that you've created. So this is the interface that you're going to be presented with after you log in successfully. This is Power Automate Cloud. On the left gutter here, you're going to see a number of different contexts of parts of within Power Automate Cloud that you can deal with. There's one section that says My Flows. We're going to come back to that one in a second. But what we want to focus first on is we want to train the AI model to be able to look at those PDF documents and be able to tell it what is the information that we want to pick out for each one of those PDFs. So to do that, what we do is we look for something called AI Hub. Now, click on AI Hub, and you're going to be presented with this user interface. And there's a whole bunch of different kinds of AI models that are available. But what we want to focus on is we want to focus on to teach it to be able to look at a specific PDF document and to train it that way. So we want to have something that extracts custom information. So you're going to be presented with this user interface, and when you see discover all the AI capabilities, there's all different kinds of capabilities that are available. But what I want to do is I want to go into the AI models, and then within AI models, there's lots of different ways to be able to use the AI, but we want it to be able to focus on documents. So we're going to click on Documents section, And the one that we really want to use is the one right here that says extract custom information from documents. We want to be able to present it with a document, a PDF document in our case, and then train it to look for the specific areas on that PDF document for the information that we want to pull out. So we want to click on that. And then what it's going to do is say, okay, it's going to give us a little bit of a preview of what it's going to look like. Extracting custom information from documents. You can see there's a delivery order. You can see that it's put a green rectangle over the areas that it's identified as the information that's pertinent or that could be pulled off of a particular document. Here's an example here, and then there's another example here of a particular document. So that's fine. Okay, so let's have it so that we can start to train its model on our purchase orders. So on the bottom right hand corner here, there's a button that says create custom model. We click on that. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to say, well, what kind of document are we dealing with? Are we dealing with a structured document or are we dealing with an unstructured document? Wait for this interface to come up. And then after we've told it what kind of a document we want to deal with, then we have to start to define things and how, basically give it the information it needs to know to be able to train it. So first of the 5 things that we need to do is we have to choose the document type. We have fixed template documents. These are the ones that are, and if you click on it, it gives you an example of what these could be. It's got documents, and what it's basically saying, it's basically structured. So here's an example here. Here's another example of a structured document, and then another example here, like a form. Then we have general documents here, and these are just documents that could be just purely text. And then we have invoices. For invoices, there's a specific set of already pre-built fields that are been set up. We're not going to do that for this go around on the purchase order samples that I have. So I'm going to leave invoices, but I want to go back to fixed template documents. So I select that option, and then it says, okay, that's the kind of document that I'm dealing with. Everything is kind of structured in terms of where everything is within the PDF purchase orders. So let me click next. Now this is the information that we have to start typing in. We have to tell it what is the individual pieces of information that we want to pull off that PDF document. Now if I go back to the PDF document here, things like, I'm going to put it as a highlighter here. Things like the purchase order number. This would be a field that I'd be interested in here, or the order date, or the company name, customer company, customer address, so on and so forth. These are the pieces of information that I want to pull from this PDF document. So I have to give those variable names, and I'm going to do that, including the subtotal and the GST and things like that down here as well. And also, I'm going to create a table. The table is going to be for this whole section here. This is all the different line items. So there's space here for 10. In this particular case, it's using 7 line items. Doesn't matter, but I need to define what the 10 areas are within this document that it's going to have line items. So I'm going to show you how to define that. But the first step is we have to create like a placeholder or a variable name for each one of these individual pieces of information that we want to pull from this PDF document. So how to do that, if I go back here, this is choose the information that we want to extract. Okay, so then we hit the add button. Now we have options. We can say we want to bring back a text field, a numeric field, a date field, a checkbox. These are all the different things that we can actually select off of this document here. But what we want to do is I want to start moving it from the top to the bottom, and I'm going to start off with just like the purchase order number, which is the first field that's on that PDF document. So it's a text field. So I'm going to say next, and then I give it a name. So the name that I'm going to give it is purchase order number. And that field represents this one right here, purchase order number. Okay. So now I've defined a purchase order number text field. Do the same thing for the order date. I'm going to give it a text field. Now there's a date field here. I'm going to intentionally leave that off, but there's a way to be able to say that it's a date field, but I'm just going to leave it as a text field for right now. And that's the order date. Okay. Now I'll do one more. And let's say, for example, I'm going to get the customer company. So I'm going to say add field, text field. Company. Okay. So you get the point. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the rest of this. I'm going to skip through this video, and I'm going to do the rest of the text fields and their number fields in this particular document. So I'm going to magically fast forward. Okay, so now I've added all of the text fields. There's 9 text fields on this particular PDF document. Company, address, city, town, province. I've added the text fields. Now what I want to do is I want to add these values down here for the subtotal, the GST tax, the shipping, and then the total. Now these are text fields, these are number fields, and I can tell the AI, I can tell it, say, look, for these particular ones, these are I expect to be numbers. So how do we do that? So if I go back to here, I'm going to click add, and what I want to do is I want to add, let's say, for example, the subtotal. So instead of a text field, I specify as a number field. And then the name of the field is going to be subtotal. The format, use dot as the decimal separator, as opposed to using the comma. In French, that's what it would be used. But by default, it's the dot. So that's what the formats are going to be. So I click on done. And I want to do the same thing for the other 3 numeric values there at the bottom of that form. So now I've added the 4 numeric fields. There's a subtotal, a GST, shipping, and total, which lines up this. Subtotal, GST, shipping, and total. Now the last thing I have to do what I have to do is I have to identify a table. This is the table here. This is the line items. So I have to tell it to expect that there's going to be a table within this PDF document. So to do that, go back to extract, choose the information to extract, click on add, and then the field that I want to select, or the type of variable that I want to select, is a table. Okay? And I click next. And now what I have to do is I have to define what the table name is, and I also have to give it what the headers are for each one of the columns. So I'm going to call this line items. That's the name of the table. Now the first column is called description, then quantity, unit price, and then total. So it's going to be edit the column, and I'm going to call this one description. This is going to be quantity. The type is number. Then we have unit price. And then finally, total. There, that's our table. Description, quantity, unit price, and total. Click done. All right. Now we've defined all the fields that are going to be, or that we want to pull off of the PDF documents. Click on next. Now we have to define a collection. This is what we're actually going to train the AI to look at. A collection is a series of sample documents. Now, in order for the AI to have a very, very good grasp of where it's supposed to look for the different fields, it's advantageous. In fact, it actually says within the documentation to give at least 5 examples. He says, improve the performance of your model, you must have at least 5 examples. I've already got 5 examples of the PDF document of different orders. So what I need to do is I need to be able to upload those 5 sample documents into Power Automate Cloud. To do that, click on New Collection. I can give it a collection name. I'm just going to call this Purchase Orders. And then click on the plus sign and allow me to be able to upload the sample documents. So I click on Add Documents. I'm going to add it for my device. And under PDF, under samples, here are my 5 PDF purchase orders. Click on Open and Upload. And now I'm done. So now it has samples to be able to, that I'm going to be able to train it to look for those specific pieces of information in each one of those PDF documents. And this is the next part is where I'm going to tag the documents. So we've added a collection. Now the fourth step is to actually tag the documents. Let me show you how to do that. Click on next. All right, you're at the very first time you do this, you may see this help. It's kind of basically showing you all the different things you can do within tagging the documents. Okay, so I'm just going to wait for it. I'm just going to click on X to close that off. So I've got my 5 documents here. You see there's a red circle in the top right hand corner. That means the document hasn't completely been tagged yet with the fields that are available. So there's the first document, the second document, the third document, and so far. What I need to do is I'm going to start with the first document, and I have to start telling it where are all of these fields that I defined. Actually, I got an error here for purchase order number. I'll come back and I'll correct that. I have text fields, I have number fields, and I have a table. Okay, now to tag, what I need to do is I need to be able to say, you can see that it's going to, when I move my cursor over each one of the arrows or areas within the form, it's going to put like a very, very fine dotted rectangular around it to identify it. Now, this is the purchase order number. So this is the field that I want to assign to purchase order number. To do that, I just right click on it and, well, sorry, I just left click on it, and it has the purchase order value here that it's put a rectangle around it. And then here are the available fields that I have that I haven't already been tagged. So I'm going to specify purchase order. Okay, so now the purchase order for this particular document has been tagged. Now the order date, because there's spaces in here, you can't select an individual like I did back up here where it was the whole word. To select this entire date, I click and drag, so it puts a rectangle around the whole area, and then it says, oh, you must mean this for the order date. And you can see that the value that it's actually highlighted is April 30th, 2026. And I want to be able to say, yeah, that's the date that I'm interested in. So I click on order date. So now it's tagged that value, and so on and so forth. I'm going to do with the customer company. Customer company is this piece of information here. And now I'm going to proceed to do the rest of them. So this is the address, the customer address. Right there. And as you can see, anywhere where there's one word, you just have to click it once and it's available. It puts the square around it for us. And then customer city. You can see that the fields are starting to gradually get all filled in. It's the same thing for the postal code. And the contact. And email. Okay, so it's got the text fields. I'm going to skip the table in the section here because it's a little bit more involved, but now I'm going to go down to the subtotal. So the subtotal here, I've got a numeric field already been defined for subtotal. I do the same thing for GST, shipping, and the total. There. So I've got all of the fields tagged that I've defined, except for the line items. This is the table section here. This does a little bit more extra, but once you've got it tagged once, it's easier to tag for the rest of the documents. So what I want to do is I need to say, okay, well, where is the table of information for the line items? Well, I'm going to click on the top right-hand corner. I don't want to include the line numbers because that's not one of the fields that I really don't care about. I care about description, quantity, unit price, and total. And I'm intentionally not highlighting the headers here. So I'm just wanting to highlight these 10 rows of information here. So I'm going to say, this is the area that I'm interested in. I let go of it and it says, well, okay, well, this table that you've selected here, what table is it associated with? Well, it's the line items that I've specified. I click on that. I'm going to close off the help here. And now what I have to do is I have to tell it all the different rows and columns that are available here. Now, to define a row, you can see that it thinks that this is one entire row. But you can see that's actually specified with a line here that there's actually 10 rows of information that could possibly be in this purchase order. So I have to define it that way. So I can just like simply by left clicking, if I click the line item or the line between these two line items here, you can see that now that there's a 1 here and then it says 2 here. Do the same thing for all the other lines here. And you can see eventually I'm defining 10 rows within this table, like that. See, 1 through 10. Now I define the rows. Now, it thinks that there's one great big column here, but we really don't have one column. We actually have 4 columns. We have something for the description, the quantity, the unit price, and then the total. So we have to define and tell the AI where is the columns, where do they start, where do they begin. Well, what I can do is you can actually, it says here to add columns, press the left, or hold down the control button and then press left. So this is the boundary between the description and the quantity. So if I hold down the control key and I left mouse click, you can see now it's defined A as this description section, which is good. And there's now column B, but column B, we need to break that down even further. So here's the dividing line between the quantity and the unit price. Again, hold down the control key on the keyboard and left click, and then do the same thing for this column here. So now we've defined 4 columns: the description, the unit price, the quantity, unit price, and the total. However, it's still, we're calling it as A, B, C, and D. We've already defined it as description, quantity, unit price, and total. So we have to assign those headers. So the next step is you click on A and you say, well, which one of these headers does column A refer to? Well, we've already defined that, and it's the description. Do the same thing for B. This is the quantity. C is the unit price, and D is the total amount for that line item. There. And now you can see that it's actually in this corner here, it's now derived the table for me. It's got the 2 line items with the description, quantity, and so forth. I can now click done, and then that particular item has now been mapped within this PDF. Now you can see that there's a little table icon here. If I click on it, I can actually get a preview of the table, and that's what we want. We want to see the description, the quantity, the unit price, and the total for each one of the line items that are in here. And then we click close like that. Okay. So now we've filled in all of the available fields that should be on this PDF, and now we've got a blue screen with a check mark for this particular document. Now, before we can say that we're finished, we have to do the other 4 PDF documents. There's 4 more that we have to do, and the reason why is because before we can actually go into the training step, we have to repeat the steps that we've just done here for the first document for the other 4. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fast forward this so that in the benefit of saving time. So I'm going to go on to the next document number 2 and essentially do what I did before. And I'm just going to fast forward, and then all 5 of these documents will be done. Okay, so I've repeated the same process for all the other 4 documents, and now you can see up in the top corner here, it's got a blue box for over each one of the documents and a check mark. And you'll notice now that the next button has now been lit up. So basically, we've done the training we needed to do for these 5 sample PDF documents. Now, when we click next, it's saying, well, here's the information we want to extract. Here's the different names for all the variables and how many examples that we have. And there should be 5 for each one of those. So the next step is to do the training. So this is where AI is going to be able to look at what we defined within those PDF documents and then understand it. So now we train it, and now it says your model is in training. I go back to my models, and it's now going to say document processing. This is the model that we're training right now, and you can see that it's saying training. Complete the training in anywhere from 30 seconds to a couple of minutes. So let's just fast forward till it's completed. Okay, so now the document, the one that we're working on right now, document processing, this is the one with the date, timestamp, and it's now been trained. So now what I can do is I can actually click on I can click on it, and it's going to give me some details about this model that we've just trained. So first thing we can do is we want to be able to take a look at this accuracy score. It says 99% excellent. This is very, very good. Basically, it's saying that for each one of these pieces of information that we've said that we want to extract out of it, it gives you a score from anywhere from 0 to 99%. You want to have it as close to 99% as possible. If you find that in your models that you've trained, it's lower than 90% or lower than 80% or 50%, what it requires is to be able to give it more samples. But for this example here, the documents are pretty clean. So it's able to, with a high percentage of accuracy, be able to pull the information from any other documents that I pass to it. So this is actually a very, very good score. So the first thing we want to do is we want to edit the model, and we want to rename this. So click on edit the model. All right, click up here, and we want to say process purchase orders rename, and save and close. All right, so now it's called process purchase orders. Now, before we can actually use this within Power Automate, we have to publish it first. And there's a button that says publish. But before we can hit the publish, let's run a quick test. Let's test it for against the PDF document that it hasn't looked at it yet. So click on quick test and then upload from my device the document that I want to test it with. So not the samples, but we want to use one of the other I have 5 other documents that I've created that have the same format. This one here. Click on OK. And let's see if it's able to identify the fields that we've trained it to look for. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So this is the PDF that it has not seen before, and it's been able to pick off the purchase order number, the order date, the customer company, all the different fields, including this one has 5 line items here. So if I click on it, you can actually see here's a table of 5 line items for this particular order. And it's been able to successfully pull that information out. And then also for the subtotal, GST, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the test is successful. So now we hit publish. So now this model has now been published. So now we want to go back to within Power Automate, we want to go to My Flows. We want to create a cloud flow that's going to be able to use a input method to be able to specify one of the PDFs and then actually process that PDF document, pull the information out of that document, and then I want to be able to add a row to an Excel workbook. So click on Add My Flows. Okay, so under Cloud Flows, I'm going to create a new Cloud Flow. Now, before I do that, I need to be able to define what the Excel workbook is that's going to collect all this information from all of these different PDF documents. Now, to do that, what I need to do is I need to create on OneDrive, I'm going to create a new Excel workbook that has a column for every one of those fields that I've defined. And let me flip over to that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be able to define the columns. Now, I've already got it I'm just going to paste it in here because I've already got the columns already defined. So I'm going to say, double click on this. So there's a purchase order number, an order date, customer company, customer address. These columns line up with each one of the fields that we defined here. Purchase order, order date, customer company, and so on and so forth. So I basically have a column for each one of those fields that it's going to be extracted for each PDF document. And this is going to be a header for that. Now what I need to do is before the Power Automate Cloud can deal with this Excel file, I need to define it as a table. So I highlight the headers, A through Q for the header names, and then I say Insert Table. Now the key thing here is it's saying, okay, this is the table. My table has headers. It's very, very important that you specify this checkbox here by saying that. And now you've defined the table. And then the table name by default is going to give it a table name, but we're just going to call this table name orders. And for this spreadsheet, we're going to call this purchase orders. Or just going to call it orders. Like that. So now we have a table called orders, and then we have a tab called orders. Okay. All right, now that we've created our Excel workbook, the next step is to create a cloud flow that'll do essentially 3 things. It's going to prompt us for a PDF document to basically process. I'm going to have it so that the AI builder will look at that document and extract the piece of information that we trained it to look for. And then the third thing this cloud flow is going to do is it's actually going to insert a row into this Excel workbook. So let's get started with that. So if I go back to make.powerautomate.com, basically Power Automate Cloud, click on My Flows. What I want to do is I want to create a new cloud flow. So on the button here says new flow. What I want to do is I want to create an instant flow. An instant flow is a flow that I can call at any time instantly, obviously. Click instant flow and I'm going to say process purchase orders. And how do I want to trigger this flow? I'm just going to say manually trigger it and click create. It's going to present the Cloudflow canvas, and there is a trigger up here that says manually trigger flow. So what we really want to do with this particular flow, so if I click on it to get some of the details, I also want to have it so that when this flow gets triggered, I want it to prompt me for the file name. In other words, the PDF document that I want it to process. Now to do that, there's an option here that says add an input. And what I want to do is I want to select file. So what this is going to do is it's actually going to prompt me for a file name and directory and then store that into a variable called file content. So that's all we have to do for this particular trigger. The next thing we want to do is we want to add an action. And what this action is going to do is it's going to utilize the AI model that we've just trained called processing purchase orders. And then what it's going to do is it's going to process it, and then it's going to actually store it into variables that we can then later use to insert into our workbook. So to do that, click the plus sign and add an action. The action that we want to use here is called predict. It's in the AI builder folder or section. Click on the predict action. And what it's going to do is the first thing it's going to ask us for is the name of the model that we just trained, which was processing purchase orders. So if I click on the drop down, it's going to list all of the AI models, but the one we're looking for here is process purchase orders. Click on that. Now what it's asking for is it's saying, well, what is the format of the document that's going to be used to be processed? Well, in our case, it's going to be PDF documents. So what I want to do is specify it as application/PDF. So I'll type in application/PDF. And then finally what it's doing is it's asking for the actual document itself. Well, we've collected that in the previous trigger above this prediction action. So to do that, for this document, I can specify, I can click on the lightning bolt to be able to bring up all of the variables from the previous actions. And you'll see that it's not listed here, but it also says see more. So it's got 16. So I'm going to click on that. And the action that the variable that we're looking for is file content bytes, not the name. We're not interested in the directory name or the file name itself, but what we're interested in is this variable here, which is the actual contents of that file. So file content bytes, we select that. And now what this particular action is going to do is it'll actually utilize our model and then read the information that we're looking for and then store it so that we can use it in the third action. The third action what we're going to do is we're going to insert a row into a table, and that was the Excel workbook that we had set up in the previously. So because it's on OneDrive, I'm going to type in OneDrive. And it's Excel Online OneDrive. Click on See More, and here's all the actions that are available to us. The action that I want to select here is add a row into a table. So I select that action. And now what it's going to do is it's going to ask us for two pieces of information. It's going to ask us for the actual file that the name of the workbook, and then the table within that workbook that we want to be able to add rows to. So the file, if I click on the open folder button here, it opens up my OneDrive, and I have it stored under here, video courses, Microsoft Power Automate, videos, and PDF to Excel. And this is the name of the workbook that we had just created, purchase orders. And then what it's doing is it's going to examine that workbook, and it's going to show us all the available tables that have been defined within that workbook. So I click on the drop down, and it should have our orders table. That's the one that we specify. So select orders. Now what it's going to do is it's examining that particular table, and it's saying, well, There are column headers. What are the column headers for that particular table? Well, it's now saying that there's under advanced parameters here. If I click on show all, you'll actually see, oops, move this down a little bit here. It's named that it's actually listed the headers in that table in this listing here. There's a purchase order number, an order date, a customer company. If I go back to the Excel workbook, purchase order, order date, customer company. So now what we do is for each row that we want to add into there, we have to specify the element, or basically the variable that's been collected from the previous action that the AI model collected for us. So to do that, I click on for the purchase order number. I can click on the lightning bolt here, and then again, it's going to bring up this this window that allows us to select the variables that we're interested in. It's under the predict action here, but you see it doesn't list all of them. It lists a small subset, but I can say see more, or I can actually say I'm interested in the order number. So if I type in order number, going to come back with purchase order. I misspelled it. Purchase order number value. Purchase order number text, data type, confidence score. What we're really interested in is the value. So I'm going to select value, and I'm going to repeat those steps for all the other columns that are in that table. So I'm going to select for order date. Click on the drop down, order date, value, customer company. If I just type in company, customer company value. To save time, I'm going to skip through and do all of the ones that are text-based up until I get to the table that's inside that PDF purchase order. So let me just skip through and do the rest of these, and I'll be right back. Okay, so what I've done so far is I've completed the selections for the values that have been collected in the previous predict action, and I've specified it here. Now what I want to do is I want to work on the line items. That's the section within the PDF document that actually has the line items here. And then this is a table. Now I want you to watch closely what happens when I specify the first one. As you know, in that table there's a description, a quantity, a unit price, and a total for each one of the line items within the PDF purchase order. Description, quantity, unit price, and total. So now I'm going to say I want to specify the description. Okay, so I click on the lightning bolt here, and I'm going to type in description. And now it says line items, description, value. That's what we're interested in, is the value. But before I select that, you'll notice that that there's an add row into table box here. Now it's going to change it into something a little bit different because it realizes that it's a table. I'm going to go back to description. Value. As soon as I select it, it now notices because it's a table, it's going to put this action within a for each. So it's going to add multiple rows based upon how many items are in the PDF order. So if I go back to this example here, if there's 8 rows in here for the line items, it's actually going to create 8 lines inside of our Excel workbook. So continue on with the quantity. Oops. Unit price. And the total. Line item total. Not the total value, but the line item total. And then we have the last 4 here are actually numeric fields, not the text fields, because they actually hold dollar values in them. So I'm going to click on the drop down, subtotal. Subtotal value, GST, shipping. And finally, the total, grand total for the order. There. All right, save it. Essentially, we're done. So let's try it out. Let's make sure that it does exactly what we want it to do. Now, this is one of the orders that it has not trained on, which is order number 1050. I'll open it up. So this order had 8 line items in it. Okay, so now what we want to do is back in our flow here, after we've saved it. And now it says your flow is ready to go. Recommended we test it. Sure, let's do that. So click the test button in the top right hand corner here. And we want to perform a manual test. And now it's doing exactly what we expected to do. It's now going to prompt us for the name of the file that we want to process, the purchase order. So we want to process purchase order, which is this one right here, 1050. So we say import order 1050, click open, and then run the flow. And now you're going to see a series of green circles with check marks. It's triggered it, took a second, and now it's doing the prediction. This is where the AI model is looking at the file that we just passed into it, the purchase order, and it's examining it, and it's pulling out all the variables that we trained it to look for. Now you see that it's completed that in 17 seconds, and now it's doing the next step, which is it's going to insert a row for each one of the line items that had been contained within that purchase order. You notice that it had 1 of 8, so it said, hey, I noticed that there's 8 line items in that PDF document, in that purchase order. So there was 8. So it executed this step, adding a row 8 times. So now when we go back to our Excel workbook, we now see the Excel workbook has been filled in. Here's 8 rows. Here's the order number, the order date, the customer company, and then over to the side here, we can get information about the line items. So if I open up our PDF document here, if I line it up a little bit here, you can see that the first line item was wireless presentation remote, quantity of 4 at $29 each. So you can see that the AI model was able to correctly pull the information out of this PDF document and then insert rows inside of our Excel workbook. And you can see that there's 8 of them, and it matches what's within here, including all of the different values. So I'm going to run it just one more time. Leave this as is, leave the document so we process that order. Now if we go back to our flow and click back, and we're going to back to our flows. There's our flow, process purchase orders. Here I can run it directly from here. And again, it's going to prompt me for another file name. I'm going to specify another purchase order. So I'm going to say, click the run button. It's going to prompt me for the name of that purchase order. This time I'm going to select order number 1051. This one I believe has 6 line items in it. Click open, and then run flow. And now it's starting. So now if I go into that Cloudflow, you can now see a running history. You can see that now, the one that I just kicked off right now, 6 seconds ago, it is currently running. If I click on this, I can get the details of it. And you can see that it's doing the prediction. It's actually executing the prediction action, which is it's using the AI flow. Or sorry, it's predicted it now. It's completed that part of it, and now it finished entering the rows into the Excel workbook. So now if we go in the Excel workbook, we can now see that there's an additional 6 rows for purchase order 1051 rather. And you can see that it's added the rows into the workbook here. So to recap, what we've done is we've used AI Hub within Power Automate to be able to train it to say, look for specific fields within a PDF document, extract those values out of the PDF document, and then insert them into an Excel workbook. So pretty easy once you know how to do it. So thanks again. We'll see you next time.